We're done playing, Kylie. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular session of council for the town of Greater Napanee, this 14th day of March, 2023. I just want to remind everybody that the meeting is going to be recorded and live streamed to the town of Greater Napanee YouTube channel. Having said that, we'll call the meeting to order. First up is closed session meeting pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act, scheduled for 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. This date in order to discuss education on the topic of property assessments 239 sub 3.1, confidential staff report, personal information about identifiable individuals, section 239 2 sub B, and confidential staff report, potential disposition of land, section 239 2 C. Rise and report. I'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session. We got a recommendation that council rise and report from closed session, and further that all recommendations made within the closed session hereby be adopted. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's any comments, questions, or concerns, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. I'll report that in closed session tonight, council approved the closed session minutes of February 14th and February 28th. Received for information a confidential report from financial services regarding personal information about identifiable individuals. Received for information a confidential report from community and corporate services pertaining to the potential sale of 3 properties and gave direction to staff. And received for information a training session on the topic of property assessments. Having said all that, I'll look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. We've got a public meeting under the Planning Act. I'll look for a resolution to convene a public meeting under the Planning Act. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there anybody, before we get started, is there anybody speaking for or against the application that we're about to hear from tonight? Seeing none, I think, Mike, you're up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, so as you had identified, we have a public meeting under the Planning Act. This is to consider rezoning a portion of the property at 4 Oakwood Lane. So this is currently an undeveloped property. The environmental protection zone encroaches into the property. It extends well into the property, and that's due to the LiDAR imagery that we received, that the Conservation Authority essentially gave to the municipality in 2016, which we used to determine the fabric of our EP zone boundaries. It identified a low spot essentially on this property that is fairly close in proximity to the high water mark. So effectively, due to that low spot being so close to the to essentially the wave uprush limit on this property, it was extended in and it's kind of blended all in together. So really this is essentially to zero in on exactly where that EP line should be. It's looking at this property in particular with a fine-tooth comb, and through the study and the survey that's been completed, it's been determined that that EP boundary really should be following the contour of the shoreline itself and not extending in on the property. So this is causing some concern with siting a house on the property. You know, the size of the dwelling that the property owner wants to construct, it would effectively need to extend into this EP area as it's currently zoned. But through this investigative review, it's been determined that that EP boundary really needs to be pulled off of the bulk of the lot fabric and kept adjacent to the water's edge. So the CRCA has reviewed that study and they have concurrence with it, and staff do as well, and we're supportive of the application as presented. But I don't know if the applicant's here this evening or not. But as you mentioned, your worship, if anybody's here to speak for or against, we would take those comments into consideration when making a recommendation to council at the next meeting.
Great, thanks, Mike. And just to reiterate, is there anybody here to speak for or against the application? Again, seeing none. Is there any questions of Michael from council? Seeing none. Thanks, Michael. I think that's all we need. We'll look for a motion to adjourn the public meeting by Councillor Pinal, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further questions, comments, or concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Deputations. I don't believe we have any registered deputations, do we, Madam Clerk? So we'll reach out and see if there's anybody that wants to do any non-registered deputations. And I know Chris is here. I think what we'll do, Chris, is I think you're here to speak with respect to a proclamation. I think what we'll do is it may be better suited if we have you speak during the proclamation. So we'll give you that opportunity. So unless there's something else. No? Okay. Is there anybody in the body of the council chambers that wishes to do a non-registered deputation? Yep, sir, come on up and we'll get you to provide your name for the clerk. Not that we probably don't know it, but we're going to get you to give it to us anyway.
Can I stand up?
You can stand up or sit, whatever you're most comfortable. We'll get you to use the microphone and it just makes it a whole lot easier. So
Yeah, I know. My name's John Wilson. I live on Bridge Street West. And now we have a racetrack going up past our place. Everybody's speeding up and down through there. And I live right next to the arena up there almost. And it turns to 40 there, 40 kilometers an hour. And they're going into there double that. Now, I don't have a radar gun, but it doesn't take much imagination when they're coming up there. And the other spot is I'm down at Springside Park every day. When I come out of there, you're almost taking your life in your hands, because when that light turns green, it's just like a drag strip coming around the bridge there. And you could be nose out there, nothing coming. And all of a sudden they're right there. I've seen them swerve around people ahead of me and everything else. So I brought this subject up before about Bridge Street. Okay, about speeding. And I think it was 2 councils ago, maybe, that I mentioned it. And the OPP stuck a box of some kind out in front of my place. And the next time they come up here, they said the only people up there speeding were the emergency vehicles. So somebody's not doing something right. And I just wondered. And my idea was if the town could afford to buy one of them radar ticket speeding things and stick in front of my place or anywhere else you want in Napanee and catch the speeders.
I think you're talking photo radar. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's still on the Highway Traffic Act or within the act itself. I think, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure the province doesn't use it anymore, but
Well,
have you been in contact with the OPP?
Toronto uses it all the time.
Yeah,
Down
and
there.
I'm sure that they
You
do
know.
up there. So
Well, the only other time I see OPP is they're going by just as fast. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
no, I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much. It'll be duly noted. And if there's something we can do to try and get people to slow down up there, I know the area very, very well. So
Yes. Okay.
we'll see what we can do for you. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, John. We need a motion to note and receive. We'll look for a motion to note and receive John's deputation, moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any other deputations? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to for the adoption of the minutes. We got 3 sets of minutes that can be adopted under the single motion for a special session of council, October 19th, 2022, special session of council, February 28th, 2023, and regular session of council, February 28th, 2023. So we'll look for a motion. Thanks, Councillor Shank. We'll get on the floor first. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Norrie. Is there any comments, questions, concerns? I think Councillor Shank has it.
The only one was back to John's comments. If you're gonna direct staff to go ahead or somebody get a hold of the OP, see what they could do with that, just so maybe look into that.
Yeah, we can do that. And probably the best way of doing that is we can fill in a report an issue.
Yeah.
And do it that route. And that way it's documented through council. So
All right.
I
sounds good.
personally can do that, or we'll assign somebody.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
So we've got a motion on the floor for the adoption of the minutes. There's no comments, questions, concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Correspondence for information. I know that there's been some correspondence for information that has been sent out. Is there anybody that wants to have something pulled and speak to it separately? Because what we can do is that we can note and receive correspondence that we're not going to talk about, but we'll do separate motions for the ones that we do want to talk about. So I know Councillor Shank has one and Councillor Pennell has two. Okay. Which ones are they? And that way we'll pull them out and then we can note and receive the other ones.
Chatham Ken.
Chatham Ken.
Yep.
Okay. And Dave?
Mine are item number 14 and 15, which is the County of Huron and the town of Coburg.
Great. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll look for a motion for the others. And we can note and receive the others for correspondence for information, moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Shank. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, Councillor Shank, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it's something that here's Chatham Kent, or it's to make it really simple, is a resolution reducing municipal insurance costs. We're trying to get other municipalities to get together to see what other avenues that could be done, or to see what could be done. I just like to have a letter of endorsement and have staff look into whatever. I'd like to be a part of the, if there's a cost saving somehow, at least be, find out exactly what's going on, what they're doing, and maybe if we can be a part of it, maybe we can get some reduction in. I'm just trying here. You know what I mean? So if somebody has an idea, whether it holds water or not, but I think it's something that we should definitely look into, considering what we pay for insurance to begin with, and how many insurance agent or insurance company actually cover municipal insurance anyway. So I think it was a pretty good resolution that they did. So I'd like to set a letter of endorsement and follow through and be a part of the solution.
And you'll make that by motion?
Yeah, I'll make that by motion.
Seconded by Councillor Pennell. Is there any further conversations with respect to the motion of Councillor Shanks? I think it's a good idea. I think any cost savings, and it is a fairly well-written report. So I think supporting it, I think would be probably best for our community to do that. So,
yep.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor of the support? Opposed? Motion's carried. And I guess Madam Clerk has what she needs for that. Perfect. Councillor Pennell. We'll go first one first.
First
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see here, my glasses aren't working out very good today. I'd like to make the motion that council send a letter of support to the County of Huron regarding the need to review the current Cannabis Act and CC the same government identities as included on the February 1st, 2023 letter, and also include the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus.
Great. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Did you want to have some further conversation with that, Councillor Pennell, or is there anybody else that wants to have some conversation with respect to that?
So just to give a little bit of a body to it, is that they're asking the provincial government to take a look at, it's been a few years now since the Cannabis Act's been in place, and they want to take a look at it, and specifically with the odor that is being produced from the manufacturing of this, the growth of it. So,
And I know that we do have that problem right here in the friendly confines of Greater Napanee. So I think it's probably a good letter to support with respect to that. So,
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Is there any other further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Dave. And your second one?
And my second one, thank you, Mr. Mayor, is that council sent a letter supporting the town of Coburg, calling for the immediate action from the province of Ontario to develop, resource, and implement a comprehensive plan to prevent, reduce, and ultimately end homelessness in Ontario. And I'd like that letter CC to Premier Ford, Minister Clark, Minister Fullerton, and Minister Jones.
And you'll do that by motion?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Nori. Did you want to give us a little further on that, Dave, or is there anybody else who wants to comment with respect to that correspondence?
Well, just again, a little bit of background is that, the homelessness is growing in Ontario. We have quite a bit of it here, and we finally need, everyone will say that it's not my problem. It's not my problem. We need the Ontario government to step up, find a solution for this, whether it be monetary or more affordable homes or whatever, but we really need some action on this. And this is something I think that the town of Coburg has initiated a letter to the same people I want my letter CC to, or our letter CC to, sorry. So it's to me, we need to support this.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Purnell.
Thank you.
Is there any other further comments or questions with respect to this? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Next up, correspondence for action, 8.2.1 proclamation request, Greater Napanee VON. We've got a staff recommendation, whereas the Victorian Order of Nurses VON team of staff and volunteers help people remain in their homes and communities. And whereas in celebration of the VON's hardworking team to support those who need assistance and care, now therefore it be resolved that the town of Greater Napanee hereby proclaims May 21st to May 27th, 2023 to be VON week in the town of Greater Napanee, and directs that the town falls be lit in blue during these celebrations. Look for a motion. We'll put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Purnell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. We have a proclamation request. Is there any conversation we want to have with respect to the VON request for the proclamation that they presented to us? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Second, 8.2.2 proclamation request, Greater Napanee Pride. We have a recommendation that council hereby proclaims June 23rd to be Pride Month in the town of Greater Napanee. Now, I know that Chris wanted to speak to this, and you're part of this organization. Chris, did you want to come up and just provide your name for the clerk? I think we know you, but O'Shane. Yep, great, thank you. And you're here to speak to the Greater Napanee Pride Month, and if you want to go ahead and all yours.
The Greater Napanee Pride Board comes to you to request this evening to request the town of Napanee recognize the month of June as Pride Month in Napanee. Although Greater Napanee is proud of its accomplishments and strides that we have made in this community, we are very well aware of the political climate and the attack on our community. So we feel that this proclamation is more important than ever. Pride was born of the need for a safe, protective space for marginalized members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. In recent weeks, several states have been drafting bills that directly jeopardize the safety and well-being of our community. The state of Tennessee has taken it one step further in signing and passing a bill that directly affects the civil rights of the trans community by banning gender-affirming care in the state of Tennessee. Gender-affirming care is often confused with gender reassignment surgery. Although gender reassignment surgery is one aspect of gender-affirming care, many members of our community rely on these services for prevention of diagnosis and treatment of various mental, physical, and mental health conditions. Gender-affirming care encompasses a range of social, psychological, behavioral, and medical interventions designed to support and affirm an individual's gender identity when it conflicts with the gender they were assigned at birth. We at Napanee Pride want our voices heard in the face of diversity. We are dedicated to uplifting the voices of the 2S LGBTQIA community, and we are here to celebrate our culture and the rights we have fought so hard to attain. We stand proud to celebrate in the name of those who have fought and lost their lives before having the opportunity to enjoy those rights they fought so hard for. We stand in solidarity with our community members who have lost their lives to the HIV crisis or live every day with the stigma attached to this condition. Napanee stands behind our drag sisters and brothers in solidarity. We stand in front of them for protection, and we will fight alongside them however long it takes to ensure a safe and respectful space for them to live. The same happy and healthy existence we all expect from a life in a beautiful small town like Napanee. I would be remiss in not mentioning the reason that June is the month we celebrate Pride. We celebrate in June to coincide with the catalyst of the gay liberation movement. That was the Stonewall Uprising. In the early morning hours of June 28th, 1969, police raided a popular gay bar in New York City's West Village, the Stonewall Inn. This was commonplace for the time, and police brutality was not uncommon in the gay community. But on this particular evening, patrons fought back, starting the Stonewall riots that went on for days. The Stonewall Inn was declared a historic landmark by NYC in 2015 and later named a national monument by President Barack Obama in 2016. This June marks the 53rd anniversary of the Pride Parade, which happened in June 1970, 1 year after the uprising began. I would like to conclude by saying that no one person has ever lost their job or been denied an apartment for being white or straight in Canada, or being attacked or leered at by strangers simply for holding the hand of the person you love. There is a certain level of social and systematic privilege not afforded to the members of the 2S LGBTQI plus community. As a group, it is okay to take the time to honor how far we have come, but we have to realize how much further we have to go as we are currently find ourselves slipping backwards. Thank you for your time and consideration on recognizing June as Pride Month in the town of Napanee. I hope this explains our cause and helps you understand the 2S LGBTQIA community a little better.
Great, thanks, Chris. I just get you, I don't know, does anybody have any questions or comments for Chris? Nope, great, thanks, Chris. We've got a recommendation that council hereby proclaims June 2023 to be Pride Month in the town of Greater Napanee. We'll look for someone to move that proclamation or the motion. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Unfinished business. Madam Clerk, do we have any unfinished business that we're aware of? Nope. Seeing none. Committee reports, Waste Diversion Committee, Community Giveaway Days. And I think that's you, Christy. You're up.
Through the chair, I'll just give a quick overview of what we're looking for from the Waste Diversion Committee. So we had our first giveaway day in October of 2022. It was well received from feedback we've heard from the community, and we're looking to recommend 2 dates that we begin with annually. So we would like to align it with for 2023 Earth Day, and then moving forward the Saturday closest to Earth Day. And then in September, this aligns with our household hazardous waste event. So we thought it would be ideal to kind of look at cleaning houses out and getting rid of stuff all in one. So we did receive a bit of feedback, a lot of really positive feedback from surveys we completed after the giveaway event. And then there's a few things that the public would like to see us improve on, increased promotion about the event. A lot of people said they didn't hear much about it. So we're going to work through our community and corporate services department to kind of find different avenues that we can get the information out. And then some people noted that they saw some broken or damaged items that were mostly garbage. So we'll work on improving the rules moving forward and hope to see great success in the future.
Great, thanks, Christy. Is there any questions? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, through your worship. Christy, thank you very much for doing this. This is a great program. Just if I could put my little bit of 2 cents into your advertising and stuff. I did hear from some people last year that there wasn't really much on the cutoff date, and I truly understand that you need to have a cutoff date for your registration so that you can do a map and get that out to the general public. If you could maybe just make a note about that as well when you're doing more of your promotion, that here's a firm cutoff date, because we have to make sure that everyone knows about this in the map. But other than that, it was a great start, and I look forward to this actually being twice a year on that. I do have a question though, when you're talking about the broken parts and stuff, did we have much stuff left over that the town had to collect?
Through discussions with our bylaw department, there was actually no issues with anything left at the curb. So it was a great success that way.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And just to answer your other question about the map, so we're going to evaluate whether there's a need for the map moving forward. It took a lot of staff time, and the feedback we heard from the residents, there was a lot of people that still participated in the event and didn't pre-register. So we'll evaluate and see if it's necessary and make the decision as staff moving forward if we could go that route.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Brown. Is there any other questions for Christie? Seeing none, thanks, Christie. I think it's great that we do it twice a year at least, and the timing is really good, at least in my world. You know, we do it in the spring when everybody's trying to get things cleaned up. We do it in the fall before the snow starts flying. So I think the timing on it's really good. So we've got a recommendation that council receive for information the Waste Diversion Committee Community Giveaway Days report, and further that council will approve and endorse Greater Napanee Community Giveaway Days to be held April 22nd and September 9th, 2023, and at minimum twice per year moving forward. And further that council directs staff to amend the applicable bylaws to allow such an event as required. So we'll look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's any further questions, comments, or concerns, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Christie. 11.1 staff reports, review of bylaw 0522 owners participation for fire department members. Do we have someone speaking to that? Bill? Yeah, sure. Yeah, it might be easier, Bill. Thanks. Yep, go ahead, Bill.
Through your worship, the staff report is a request to clean up a bylaw that's been on the books for a long time. In 1997, the FPPA spoke to mandatory retirement. Provincial legislation was indoctrinated at that point. Since then, there's been a movement in the fire service to keep and maintain senior officers past the age of 60. And that's what we're asking to do here, is to clean up the bylaw to allow the senior members of the fire service, as they look at aging out at age 60, to look maybe towards a deputy or a chief position. They can't do that at present with the way that the language of the bylaw says or states. And what we're asking is to separate the two non-management and management under the FPPA and the present contract. All suppression firefighters must retire at age 60. That's not so with management.
Okay, is there any questions of Bill? Seeing none, I guess the only question, and I know we spoke at somewhat a great length with respect to this bill.
Absolutely.
We're looking for a draft amendment to the bylaw, and the draft amendment of the bylaw, we're looking to get that from OMERS.
That's correct. We've received it as of today. Nicole could actually speak to that, but we have a copy from OMERS. I'll let you speak, Nicole.
Received the draft file from OMERS today. We have to then go in and put edits into it for effective date. Sent that bylaw to council. What that bylaw is going to represent is that we are moving fire management to a normal retirement age of 65 from 60.
Right.
Within that, their contribution percentage drops as well. So currently for firefighters, they contribute 9.2%, and this would drop down to 9 to be in line. Everybody else really is. And normal retirement age of 65.
Yeah, Councillor Shank, go ahead.
I totally understand what is going on here, but I just like to table this right now. All right, until the next meeting, until we see that, and also to see what the attrition is, because we're talking about identifiable individuals here. All right, and you're talking about monetary also in open session, and also if you have two that are very close to the same age and 65, all of a sudden, what happens then when then in 5 years' time you're saddled with a new council? All right, that both all of a sudden your senior managers might be gone. You know what I mean? All I'm saying is these discussions, because you're dealing with identifiable individuals, I think something like this, not that I like putting anything in closed session, but that's something that I think that I'd like to have a discussion with Bill in, in closed session. What are the plans here? What is going on? You know what I mean?
So if I may, Counselor,
Yeah,
through
go ahead,
through the chair, Your worship, this is just a staff report, Counselor, so we're not making any decisions tonight. What we will be bringing back is the actual refurbished bylaw, the verbiage from OMERS that specifically says there is no mandatory retirement age at age 60 for fire management. That's it. So we're not talking money. We're not talking any of that stuff. We're simply talking about cleaning up language that allows us to not be forced to retire at age 60. And that it's not being decided tonight, Counselor.
All I'm saying is I totally agree with you, and I see it. I've saw it for so long where you have some excellent individuals that are at 60 that are in better shape than some of the ones that are at 30, and then they're punted to the door. And then you go ahead and you have some of the individuals that have all that experience that could be teaching all the younger ones so much more. So I see that I just like to, there's other things that needed to be discussed that because I cannot, because it's an identifiable issue, and it deals with your management and everything else. That's the reason why I like to discuss that portion of it. You know what I mean? In closed session. But
Mr. Pinson, do you want to?
I just want to say through your worship is, to those points that are talking performance and aptitude and how we place individuals, this is simply a policy decision based on pensions. So I'm not sure what we would talk about in a closed session that would have anything to do with a policy statement around pensions.
So, okay, so you want to bring it right out, so, I mean, John Koenig retired at 60, a lot of other guys have retired at 60, so therefore, is the chief and deputy chief want to go on to 65 now? You know what I mean? All I'm saying is if you're gonna move this from 60 to 65, and you have two of them are very close to the same age, so in 5 years' time, you're gonna lose them both. If they both decide to stay to 65, then you can lose the chief and deputy chief all in the same year.
So
Is that good planning?
No, so I think we're mixing up some things because quite frankly, from an administrative point of view, our job as staff is to do succession planning and plan for potential departures. Quite frankly, I could have any staff leave at any point in time that we have to plan for, right? So I just want to de-link something that is purely a pension, a benefit piece from whether it's succession planning, staff planning, talent management, all those things are separate from the issue that we're talking about right now is a pension. Happy to have those broader discussions around talent management, succession planning, especially when you potentially have two people that could retire at the same time.
That's what my concern is.
But that's what we would do as senior management in terms of
Absolutely.
making sure that we've got succession behind that to make sure we can recover, if at all possible.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So not looking back, but looking forward. For your worship. What you're saying, Bill, is you don't want to retire at 60. You would like the option.
I would like the option to stay as well as anybody in our position.
At 60?
Absolutely.
I've had enough. I'm out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
At 58, I could, right. I'm 55 now. I can go. I don't plan on it. We truly are just looking at cleaning up a piece of legislation and a bylaw that is restrictive
Right.
to several members of our staff or present staff.
And it
or future.
conflicts with OMERS and.
OMERS allows us to do it. It has recently changed in 2017. The legislation allowed for two different groups to be in OMERS, one mandatory 60, one not.
Okay.
And that's, yeah.
I understand that.
Councillor Pennell.
Through your worship, I'm not sure if we're going to be talking about identifiable individuals here, and if I do, just shut me out, please.
I think Madam Clerk will. will put the limit on us if we go into areas of concern, I'm sure.
And forgive me, but anyway, with you cleaning up this bylaw, yes. Is there staff members now? How do I address this? Is there staff members now that are non-suppression that are included in the 65?
Yes, that is correct. That is one of the concerning pieces that we have right now that we found out while investigating this, is that one of our team that's non-suppression is already 65, NRA 65.
So this would just be cleaning up and joining that person.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
May I ask who what position that is?
That would be an identifiable person, and I don't think I should do that, Counselor.
You know what, I have a pretty good idea who it is, but I mean, all I'm saying, so am I gonna get a report then in a month's time or whenever the next meeting with this bylaw, what it is monetarily wise? What the impact's going to be?
Sure. So the impact is actually lessened on the corporation. That's in my report. The premiums that you pay for me to retire till 65 or whoever is in that is lower. Yeah, it's longer, clearly, but you're paying the person to work. And I'm not saying it's going to be me or anybody that I know at this point. I'm just saying.
But I didn't see any numbers.
There is.
No numbers there.
No, of course not, because that's Omer's. I mean, I don't, Nicole can answer the numbers piece, I guess.
So it's currently right now, the firefighters who are NRA 60, they contribute at 9.2%. If you're NRA 65, you contribute at 9%.
First of all, is there any other questions or concerns at this point? I guess my gut feeling is that there seems to be still some concerns or some questions that maybe we haven't addressed or maybe we should. I guess the biggest one is to see the draft amendment from Omer's with respect to it, because I think it may or may not help us make an easier decision with respect to this. So what I would suggest is that we put it over for 2 weeks, because we do have the information, and bring it back at our next meeting so that we've, and if there's any other questions or comments or concerns that we need to get clarified, I think maybe we probably should do that over the next 2 weeks. Mr. Pinson.
If I may, your worship, what we could do is the treasurer could bring forth with the recommended bylaw, we could do the legislative portion. And if council desires, we could have a closed session piece in front of that, so we could clear the air in terms of the identifiable people, such that when you got the open session, we were good.
I think that may be a very viable option.
Yep, I agree with it, because I don't want to put anybody, it's their business is their business, but it's still, we run the, you know what I mean? So I have to know, so if somebody, you know what I mean? And so it's clear in my mind what we're doing, what we're not doing, and what's fair for all parties concerned.
And I think it's imperative that it's clear in all of our minds that we know what we're doing with respect to this. So I guess what we do is we will look for a motion. Mr. Pinson, if you could say that again, we'll look for somebody to adopt that.
So I guess what I'm saying, your worship, is we could still, if I might suggest, we proceed with the staff recommendation with the proviso that there is a closed session portion in the next council explaining what some of those issues are with the identifiable people, personnel,
And so,
individuals.
so we stick with the resolution, and the resolution just directs staff to draft an amendment. So we still have the opportunity to delve into it further if need be.
If you would like, we can add and further the council direct that a closed session report be brought to the next meeting.
Perfect. I think that's probably, probably applicable. So the recommendation that we have, sorry, if there's any other questions or comments, I'll suggest that the recommendation that we have is that council receive for information the staff report recommending a review and amendment to bylaw 0522 Omer's enrollment for fire management. And further, that council direct staff to draft an amendment to the bylaw to reflect the change in normal retirement age NRA from 60 to 65 for all management members of the fire department. And further, that a closed session meeting be
The council
Adopted.
directed closed session report be brought to the next meeting to.
by Counselor Shank, seconded by Counselor Nori. Yeah, any further comments or questions?
The only
Counselor
other
Shank?
comment I have is I'd like to have staff and or Bill look into how come Stone Mills can have their volunteers and other people stay beyond 60? Like Pete, here we go, talking about
Through your worship, the FPPA does not dictate retirement age for non-suppression, non-salary, meaning full-time suppression firefighters. Most fire departments across the province and country for that matter have adopted the same retirement age for their volunteer paid on call as they did with their career unionized staff to keep it consistent across the board. So many of the comparators that you would look to around our area, if they don't have career suppression staff, they're 65 because most of the country is 65.
So loyalist, I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
So is loyalist 60 and then you're out?
So I can't speak to loyalist at this point because they're so new into the suppression. But I do believe that their volunteers are still 65. I believe.
65.
I believe.
Actually, the reading they did do of the FPPA, it doesn't identify volunteer, as crazy as it sounds, it doesn't identify volunteer firefighters as firefighters because they're not salaried.
Through your worship, as we indicated during our conversation, there are three different definitions of a volunteer firefighter, and you are absolutely correct. The FPPA is not perfect. It does speak to volunteers in different sections of that act. When it gets down to the employment, where it talks about hiring and firing of suppression firefighters, it excludes volunteers because of the union aspect of it.
Counselor Shank, so.
That's the reason why. There's just more questions than answers. Yeah.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we've got a motion on the floor. We'll look for a vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
11.2, growth and expansion, PLZACO 2022-101-3271, County Road 41, rezoning report. And I believe that would be Mr. Nobes. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Worship. The public meeting for this application was before council at the last meeting. Staff had a few opportunities to speak with the one individual who raised some concern just moments prior to that meeting. The concern really surrounds, additional strain on groundwater resources primarily. So it wasn't necessarily a concern with respect to the use of the property for a house or installation of an art studio, for example. It was really around concern with respect to the groundwater resources and, really additional development in the area per se, not necessarily specific to this application. It was more a generalized type comment. So we had some discussions with that individual, explained the process, explained, the property is developed today, it can be used for a church today. It uses a cistern now. With it being already developed, that the church effectively could install a well, and it would be a greater strain on the aquifer than a single residential dwelling. So with all that being said, staff are we're recommending approval. We don't feel that there is really a basis to require a hydrogeological assessment, really, because that intensity of use could occur today without any oversight per se. And we would be, reducing that level of intensity of strain on the groundwater resources. So ultimately, that being said, staff are recommending approval. And those are just the points that have changed since the last meeting. Just wanted to bring council up to speed with respect to those conversations with that individual. And the draft bylaw proposes some lot frontage adjustments and some yard setback reductions. And that's really to recognize the existing lot as it sits today and the location of the existing church. It's really to legalize those essentially non-conformances, non-compliances through the zone change. So if there's any questions, I'd be.
Is there any questions or comments for Michael? Seeing none, we've got a recommendation that council receive for information the growth and expansion PLZACO 2022-101 3271 County Road 41 rezoning report, and further that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment subject to the conditions that are in your agenda. So moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Mike. 11.3 updated service fees bylaw. Do we have someone speaking to that?
That would be me. So through your worship, we had some discussion about this proposed changes at the last meeting. This report now includes those changes that were discussed. If there are no further changes, what we would do is advertise, allow the public an opportunity to comment on any of this, and all of those comments would be brought back to council. And the timelines under our public notice bylaw would see this come back on April 9th for adoption, assuming that there's nothing in the public comments that makes you change your mind. So.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. Do we have any questions or comments for Jessica? Seeing none. We've got a recommendation that council receive for information the updated service fees bylaw review report, and further that council direct staff to bring forward an update to the fees for services bylaw in accordance with the recommendations outlined in the report, subject to the town's public notice requirements. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Temporary meeting schedule adjustment. And is that you as well, Madam Clerk?
I don't have anything to add to this report, but I'm happy to take questions.
Is there any questions for Jessica? Councillor Pennell and then Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, worship. I don't have any questions. I just have a statement that tonight it worked well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the next little while goes, but it worked well tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Hicks.
Just second what Councillor Pennell said. It seems to be working well. One question, I think we're going to have a lot to do at the next meeting.
Yes.
So are we thinking that we would actually start closed session earlier than 5? Because are we likely to have committee of adjustment as well?
So through your worship, our intention would be, the default would now be 5 if there is closed session. If there's no closed session, we start at 6:30. But in consultation, when we meet weekly with the mayor and the CAO and myself, we would look at that upcoming agenda. And if we think there's no reasonable way this can be done in just over an hour, we would probably look for council's approval for an earlier start time.
And of course, that would be subject to everybody's schedules, right?
Yeah.
So.
Option would be you break, and then when you reach the end of your open session meeting, you go back into closed session and deal with anything you haven't dealt with yet.
Okay. All right.
So there's still some flexibility with that, I think. So.
Good enough.
Okay, any further questions of Jessica? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that council receive for information legislative services temporary meeting schedule adjustment report, and further that council alter the timing of closed session meetings when required to begin at 5 p.m. as a 3-month trial, and further the staff report back to the July council meeting on the results of the trial and any recommended changes to the procedural bylaw. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? I'd just like to say, I'll echo the comments of Councillor Pennell and Councillor Hicks is that thus far, it seems to be working very well. And hopefully with a little bit of luck, it'll continue to work well as well. So, okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaws, bylaw number 2023-0019, by being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 0222. I believe that we will not need to do that one as of yet.
No,
Madam Clerk.
this is the one that you just approved that Mr. Nob spoke.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was thinking it was,
No, the Omer's bylaws. not
yeah,
on here.
I was, yeah, sorry about that. We'll need a motion for the first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, we'll read it first, second, and finally passed. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Bylaw number 2023-0020, being a bylaw to assume part of Shank Street on a registered plan 1182 for public use. We'll look for a motion. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Martin. Prior to first, second, and final readings, is there any comments, questions, or concerns with respect to this bylaw? Seeing none, read a first, second, and finally passed. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. New business. Is there any new business that anyone wants to bring up this evening? Seeing none. Notice the motions. We had a notice motion at our last meeting by Councillor Shank with respect that council direct staff to investigate and report back to council regarding the feasibility of establishing a municipal quarry operation in the integral for the internal aggregate use. Councillor Shank, did you want to speak to that?
No, it's just another way to save money, but I'd like to also add on to that, looking at the last report that we had maybe a month ago, what our costs are for getting rid of any possibly contaminated soil also. So all I'm saying is I want to leave that option out to Peter, that when he goes ahead and he looks and with his staff looks at, we're not talking one site, we're just talking, can it be done? Where could we do it? You know what I mean?
Generally speaking.
Generally speaking, throughout the whole municipality, what sites are viable, what sites aren't viable, you know what I mean? And what can we do? Where can we save money? You know, disposal of, now we understand also that some of the snow in certain areas has to be contained on a certain property also. What can we do to make the municipality more efficient and run like a business? All right. So if it costs us a little bit of money here, but it's going to save us major dividends later on down the road, you know, and if I can buy a ton, if I could produce a ton of gravel for $3 or $3.50, where it's instead of costing 12, you know what I mean? Let's let the staff look at all those options and not handcuff them. That's what basically the intent of the motion is.
So with respect to the recommendation, Madam Clerk, I think it sounds like it's a little bit, because we're not only talking about the aggregate, we're talking about the disposal of contaminated soils. Mr. Pinson.
May I add a comment, Your Worship? I think we'll hit budget later on this week, and I know staff are going to do, pretty much a complete review of all aspects of municipal operations during 2023. We could potentially take that time to look at some of the issues that Councillor Shank has brought up, as opposed to doing one-off staff reports.
No,
If that works for you, Councillor Shank.
I know what Peter's salary is. I do not want to have him sit down and make a report just to make a report to make one person on council happy.
We're gonna
So when
dive into a
you
whole
go through
bunch of
your
these
service
issues.
delivery review, I want to have the senior management to go ahead and say, hey, where can we save money? What is efficient? You know what I mean? What can we possibly do? This is the intent that I want to give Peter and that staff to do. And expect all the departments to do basically the same anyway.
I guarantee you that will be the focus of our work during 2023.
Thank you.
So having said that, we would be in a position to withdraw.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we haven't put the motion forward, have we?
Nope.
But we can withdraw the notice of motion or withdraw. We don't need to at this point, do we, Madam Clerk?
You don't need to. So if it sits for 2 meetings without anybody moving and seconding it, it just goes away.
I'll just,
Or you can.
I will withdraw it,
now.
but
Okay.
at the same token, John, just because I withdraw it doesn't mean it gets kicked underneath the rug and get forgotten. All right,
And,
thank you.
and I think there's always the opportunity to bring it back anyway, so
Yeah, but I don't want to bring it back. Then I'll be angry bringing it back.
rightfully so. Okay, so I think staff has the direction. We won't need to do that motion this evening. Just for clarity, Madam Clerk, we can leave it there for now?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's been, I have it as being withdrawn.
withdrawn. Okay, perfect. Statements by members. Do any of the members have any statements that they want to share tonight? Seeing none. CAO's remarks, Mr. Pinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to, I sent out a note earlier today, publicly acknowledge Michael Fisher's work as our Director of Human Resources. Michael has decided to take on a challenge outside of the municipal sector. We will evaluate his replacement and or reassignment of work as we push through our service delivery review and budget work this year.
Great, thank you. The forward calendar, I know everybody's had an opportunity to look at that. If there's any comments or questions with respect to the forward calendar that we now have? Seeing none. Look for a motion to confirm the proceedings of this evening's meeting. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Hicks. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Corporation of Town of Greater Napanee. Ready, first, second, and finally passed. This 14th day of March, 2023. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Martin. Comments, questions, concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. It's an early evening and we'll see you in a couple weeks.